this woman uncomfortable. You people always think you can just wander anywhere.
I'm here for a professional meeting. She chose not to.
In the gleaming towers of corporate America, where diversity statements hang on marble walls like modern art, true prejudice still lurks beneath polished surfaces. One elevator ride would strip away years of carefully constructed professional facades, transforming a routine job interview into a viral sensation that would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and destroy a career overnight. The security cameras captured every second. The Pinnacle Financial Tower pierced the Chicago skyline like a steel and glass monument to corporate ambition. On the 34th floor, Morrison and Associates commanded spectacular views of Lake Michigan, their floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the kind of success that attracted Fortune 500 clients and ambitious professionals alike. The marketing firm had built its reputation on cutting-edge campaigns and creative excellence, though their commitment to diversity remained more aspiration than achievement. March 15th arrived with the crisp promise of spring, though winter's grip still held the Windy City. The corporate district bustled with the familiar rhythm of power lunches and conference calls, briefcases, and tailored suits moving through marble lobbies with practiced efficiency. Inside Morrison and Associates, the creative director position had generated intense interest. The role promised a six-figure salary, creative control over major campaigns, and the prestige that came with leading one of the city's most respected marketing teams. The ground floor lobby gleamed under crystal chandeliers, its marble floors polished to mirror perfection. Security cameras mounted in every corner captured the constant flow of executives, consultants, and visitors who passed through the space daily. The elevator bank stood as the building's central nervous system, carrying dreams and ambitions skyward with mechanical precision. Today, those same cameras would document an encounter that would reshape everything. Marcus Williams embodied the modern corporate success story that diversity brochures promised but rarely delivered. At 32, his Harvard MBA had opened doors that his grandfather could never have imagined, leading him through prestigious consulting firms and innovative marketing campaigns that had earned industry recognition. His journey from a working-class neighborhood in Detroit to the executive suites of Chicago represented years of navigating predominantly white corporate spaces with diplomatic skill and unwavering professionalism. Williams had built his reputation on campaigns that spoke to diverse audiences without pandering, understanding that authentic representation required more than surface-level imagery. His portfolio included award-winning work for major brands seeking to reach multicultural markets, each project demonstrating his ability to bridge cultural divides while driving substantial revenue growth. Colleagues respected his analytical mind and collaborative approach, while clients appreciated his ability to translate complex demographic insights into compelling creative strategies. The invitation to serve as an external consultant for Morrison and Associates represented both professional validation and personal opportunity. Williams understood the weight of being one of few black executives in the evaluation process, knowing his presence would influence not just the hiring decision, but potentially the company's future direction on diversity initiatives. His role involved assessing candidates' cultural competency and their ability to create inclusive marketing strategies for an increasingly diverse consumer base. Standing 6 feet tall with an athletic build maintained through morning runs along the lakefront, Williams projected the quiet confidence that came from years of proving himself in challenging environments. His charcoal gray suit was impeccably tailored, his leather portfolio contained carefully prepared evaluation materials, and his Morrison and Associates visitor badge identified him clearly as part of the interview process. Yet he knew from experience that assumptions about his presence in corporate spaces often preceded any examination of his credentials. Williams approached each professional interaction with measured optimism, tempered by realistic expectations about unconscious bias in corporate America. Rebecca Patterson's professional trajectory resembled a frustrating plateau, 15 years of lateral moves and missed promotions that had left her desperate for the breakthrough that always seemed just beyond reach. At 45, she carried the accumulated resentment of watching younger colleagues advance while she remained trapped in middle management, her $85,000 salary barely covering the suburban lifestyle she had stretched to afford. The creative director position at Morrison and Associates represented more than career advancement. It was financial salvation wrapped in professional validation. Patterson's resume revealed a competent but unremarkable career path through Chicago's marketing landscape. She had worked for 3 different agencies, each transition explained as seeking new challenges, though the reality involved stagnating performance reviews and limited growth opportunities. Her portfolio showcased technically proficient work that lacked the innovative edge that distinguished industry leaders from capable contributors. Colleagues would describe her as reliable but uninspiring, someone who executed assigned tasks without bringing fresh perspectives to creative challenges. The suburban enclave where Patterson lived reinforced her increasingly narrow worldview. Her neighborhood's demographics skewed overwhelmingly white and upper middle class, creating an echo chamber where diversity felt like an abstract concept rather than lived reality. Her social circles consisted primarily of other marketing professionals who shared similar backgrounds and perspectives, their conversations often circling around complaints about corporate diversity initiatives and perceived unfairness in promotion processes. Patterson's digital footprint revealed the gradual evolution of her resentments into coded discriminatory attitudes. Her LinkedIn posts frequently shared articles questioning affirmative action policies, while her Facebook account showed engagement with content promoting colorblind racism ideology. She had developed a vocabulary of professional euphemisms that masked underlying prejudices, speaking about cultural fit and merit-based hiring in ways that colleagues with more diverse perspectives recognized as exclusionary language. Within her workplace environments, Patterson's discriminatory patterns had become increasingly visible to observant colleagues. During team meetings, she consistently interrupted Black and Latino team members, often rephrasing their ideas in ways that diminished their contributions. When diverse candidates were hired, she would make seemingly innocent comments questioning their qualifications or suggesting they had received special consideration. Her discomfort around colleagues of color manifested in avoiding collaborative projects and declining social invitations that would require extended interaction. The financial pressures mounting in Patterson's personal life had intensified her professional desperation. Her mortgage refinancing had reset at higher interest rates just as her children approached college age, creating a perfect storm of financial obligation that her current salary could not support. Credit card balances had grown steadily as she maintained appearances while struggling with underlying economic reality. The creative director position offered not just career advancement, but survival, making her view any diverse candidates as direct threats to her family's financial stability. Patterson's relationship with Morrison & Associates' existing diversity initiatives had been marked by subtle resistance disguised as practical concerns. She had questioned the ROI of multicultural marketing campaigns, suggested that diversity training took time away from revenue-generating activities, and privately complained that the company was prioritizing demographics over talent. Her comments in company Slack channels revealed a pattern of microaggressions that HR had noted but not formally addressed, creating a paper trail of bias that would later prove significant. The morning of her interview, Patterson had spent hours preparing responses to questions about leadership and creative vision, but had given little thought to queries about inclusive marketing or cultural competency. In her mind, these topics represented politically correct obstacles rather than essential business skills for modern marketing professionals. Her preparation focused on showcasing technical abilities, while minimizing discussion of diversity-related initiatives that she viewed as peripheral to core business objectives. Patterson's desperation for the Morrison & Associates position had reached levels that clouded her professional judgment, making her view the interview as a zero-sum competition, where any advantage gained by diverse candidates represented a loss for her own prospects. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Pinnacle Tower's marble lobby, as Patterson approached the elevator bank at precisely 2:42 p.m., her navy blue suit pressed to perfection and her leather portfolio clutched with white-knuckled determination. She had arrived early, spending the previous 10 minutes in the lobby restroom, checking her appearance and rehearsing key talking points for what she considered the most important interview of her career. Her reflection in the polished marble columns showed a woman fighting to project confidence while anxiety churned beneath the surface. Patterson pressed the up button with practiced corporate efficiency, positioning herself directly in front of the elevator doors as she had learned from years of navigating office buildings. Her mind raced through potential interview questions and carefully crafted responses, each answer designed to showcase her experience while minimizing discussion of diversity initiatives she viewed as irrelevant distractions from core business objectives. The familiar ritual of waiting for corporate elevators provided a moment of calm before the professional performance that would determine her financial future. The sound of approaching footsteps from the left side of the lobby caused Patterson to glance sideways, where she observed a tall black man in an impeccably tailored charcoal gray suit walking toward the elevator bank. Williams moved with the confident stride of someone completely comfortable in corporate environments, his leather portfolio indicating professional purpose, and his visitor badge clearly identifying him as having legitimate business in the building. Yet Patterson's mind immediately began cataloging assumptions about his presence, her unconscious bias translating his professional appearance into a narrative that placed him outside the sphere of legitimate corporate activity. Williams approached the elevator bank with the casual professionalism of someone who had navigated countless similar lobbies throughout his career. He noticed Patterson's position near the elevator doors and maintained a respectful distance, checking his phone briefly to confirm the timing of his afternoon interview obligations. His Morrison & Associates visitor badge hung clearly visible on his suit lapel, identifying his role as an external consultant, though Patterson's glance registered only the surface details that fit her preconceived expectations about who belonged in executive spaces. The elevator's arrival chimed softly through the marble lobby as the doors slid open to reveal an empty car spacious enough to accommodate a dozen passengers comfortably. Williams gestured politely toward the elevator with a brief nod, extending the courteous invitation for Patterson to enter, first that his upbringing and professional training had made automatic. His gesture carried no expectation beyond basic politeness, the kind of respectful interaction that occurred thousands of times daily in corporate America, between professionals sharing common spaces. Patterson's response revealed the depth of her unconscious bias as her body language shifted dramatically upon realizing she would be sharing the enclosed elevator space with a black man. Her shoulders tensed visibly, her breathing became shallow, and her eyes darted between Williams and the elevator interior as though calculating some imagined risk. The spacious elevator that moments before had seemed perfectly adequate suddenly felt confining and threatening, despite the obvious absurdity of her concerns about a well-dressed professional carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a corporate visitor badge. The moment of decision stretched uncomfortably as Patterson stepped backward from the elevator doors, her movement creating additional distance between herself and Williams, while she struggled to formulate a socially acceptable excuse for her obvious avoidance. Her face flushed slightly as she realized the transparency of her behavior, yet her discomfort with sharing the confined space overcame her awareness of how her actions might be perceived. Williams recognized the familiar pattern of discrimination he had encountered throughout his career, his expression remaining neutral despite the sting of yet another reminder that his presence in corporate spaces triggered automatic suspicion and avoidance. Patterson's voice carried artificial brightness as she announced her decision to wait for the next elevator, claiming a sudden preference for less crowded transportation despite the obviously empty car before them. Her excuse fooled no one, least of all Williams, who had experienced similar encounters countless times throughout his professional career. He entered the elevator alone, maintaining his composed demeanor while internally processing another instance of casual workplace racism that would require emotional energy to navigate professionally. The elevator doors closed with mechanical indifference to the human drama that had just unfolded, carrying Williams toward his appointment while Patterson remained in the lobby, checking her watch and realizing that her discriminatory choice had created a timing problem for her interview. The security cameras mounted throughout the lobby had captured every moment of the encounter, recording Patterson's obvious discomfort and deliberate avoidance in digital clarity that would later become irrefutable evidence of her discriminatory behavior. Patterson's decision to take the stairs to the 34th floor reflected both her commitment to avoiding shared elevator space with Williams and her growing awareness that her behavior might have consequences if observed by the wrong people. The physical exertion of climbing 34 flights of stairs in professional attire and heeled shoes would leave her winded and disheveled, compromising her interview preparation while serving as an immediate consequence of her discriminatory choices. Each flight of stairs provided time to rationalize her behavior through increasingly elaborate mental gymnastics that transformed her obvious bias into claimed concerns about personal space and elevator anxiety. Williams arrived at the Morrison and Associates reception area with his typical punctuality, greeting the receptionist professionally and confirming his role in the afternoon interview process. His calm demeanor gave no indication of the elevator encounter, reflecting years of practice at compartmentalizing discriminatory experiences to maintain professional effectiveness. He used the brief waiting period to review candidate portfolios and prepare thoughtful questions that would assess both technical capabilities and cultural competency. Unaware that one of the candidates he would be evaluating had just demonstrated profound bias in refusing to share elevator space with him. The conference room where the interview would take place had been prepared with typical corporate efficiency, featuring a polished table, ergonomic chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased Chicago's impressive skyline. Williams took his position at the interview table alongside Sarah Chen from HR and David Morrison, the company principal, reviewing Rebecca Patterson's resume and portfolio materials that painted a picture of competent but unremarkable professional achievement. Her application materials made no mention of diversity and inclusion experience, a notable omission in an industry increasingly focused on multicultural marketing strategies. When Patterson finally arrived at the reception area, her appearance revealed the consequences of her 34-floor stair climb. Her carefully styled hair showed signs of perspiration, her breathing remained slightly elevated, and her complexion carried the flush of physical exertion that professional makeup could not entirely conceal. The receptionist's invitation to enter the conference room created a moment of anticipation for what all parties expected would be a routine interview process, though the afternoon's events had already set in motion, consequences that would transform a standard hiring procedure into a viral sensation. Patterson's entrance into the conference room began with confident stride and professional smile, her rehearsed interview demeanor activating automatically as she prepared to showcase 15 years of marketing experience. The sight of Williams seated at the interview table, wearing his consultant badge, created a moment of cognitive dissonance so severe that her forward momentum faltered mid-step, her brain struggling to reconcile the black man she'd refused to share elevator space with, and the marketing professional, now, positioned to evaluate her candidacy for the creative director position she desperately needed. The silence that followed Patterson's abrupt departure from the conference room carried the weight of 15 years of corporate discrimination crystallized into a single, career-ending moment. Williams sat quietly at the polished table, his expression thoughtful rather than vindictive, while Sarah Chen and David Morrison processed what they had just witnessed. The elevator incident, when combined with Patterson's disastrous interview performance, painted a clear picture of workplace bias that demanded immediate institutional response. Sarah Chen reached for her phone within minutes of Patterson's exit, her HR training recognizing the legal and reputational implications of what had transpired. The building's security office received her call requesting immediate preservation of all elevator bank footage from the afternoon, her professional tone masking the urgency she felt about documenting the discriminatory behavior. Morrison and Associates had invested heavily in diversity and inclusion initiatives, and Patterson's actions threatened to undermine years of careful reputation, building within Chicago's competitive marketing landscape. Williams remained in the conference room as the initial shockwaves of the incident began to spread throughout the company's executive ranks. His calm professionalism impressed his colleagues, who observed his measured response to blatant discrimination with growing respect for his character and judgment. David Morrison found himself reconsidering not just the afternoon's events, but the broader implications of having Williams continue his consulting relationship with the firm, recognizing that his perspective would prove invaluable in preventing future incidents. The security footage review commenced within 2 hours of Patterson's departure, with Morrison and Associates' legal team joining HR representatives in the building's security office. The cameras had captured every moment of Patterson's discriminatory behavior with digital clarity, from her initial body language changes upon seeing Williams to her obvious discomfort and deliberate avoidance. The footage provided irrefutable evidence that would protect the company from potential liability while documenting Patterson's bias for any future legal proceedings. Meanwhile, Patterson sat in her car in the Pinnacle Towers parking garage, her hands shaking as she realized the magnitude of her mistake. The interview had been a complete disaster, her carefully prepared responses crumbling under the pressure of confronting her own prejudices in real time. Her phone showed missed calls from her current employer, suggesting that word of the incident was already spreading through Chicago's interconnected marketing community. The creative director position that had represented financial salvation now seemed impossibly out of reach. The viral spread of the incident began. Within hours, initiated by an anonymous Morrison & Associates employee who shared security footage on social media platforms. The video's impact was immediate and devastating, with viewers quickly identifying the obvious racial dynamics at play in Patterson's elevator avoidance. The hashtag #ElevatorKaren began trending within 6 hours, accompanied by thousands of comments analyzing Patterson's body language and condemning her discriminatory behavior. Williams received a flood of supportive messages from his professional network as news of the incident spread through LinkedIn and industry publications. Colleagues who had experienced similar workplace discrimination shared their own stories, while diversity and inclusion consultants began citing the elevator encounter as a textbook example of unconscious bias in corporate environments. The overwhelming support surprised Williams, who had grown accustomed to navigating workplace racism in isolation rather than with public backing. Patterson's current employer launched an internal investigation within 24 hours of the incident going viral, prompted by employee complaints and client concerns about the company's reputation. Her previous discriminatory behaviors, which had been overlooked or minimized in the past, suddenly took on new significance as HR representatives interviewed colleagues about observed patterns of bias. The paper trail of microaggressions and inappropriate comments that had accumulated over years of employment now provided grounds for immediate termination. Morrison and Associates faced their own crisis management challenges as media attention focused on their interview processes and diversity initiatives. The company's leadership recognized that their response to the incident would define their reputation for years to come, making decisive action essential to protecting both their brand and their commitment to inclusive workplace practices. Emergency meetings with legal counsel and public relations specialists resulted in a comprehensive strategy for addressing the situation transparently, while protecting Williams from additional scrutiny. The incident's rapid transformation from private workplace discrimination to viral social media sensation reflected broader cultural tensions about racism in corporate America. Comment sections filled with personal stories from professionals of color who had experienced similar treatment, while corporate diversity consultants began developing new training modules based on the elevator encounter. The case study potential was immediately recognized by business schools and HR professionals seeking concrete examples of how unconscious bias manifests in everyday workplace interactions. Patterson's attempts to control the narrative through defensive social media posts and phone calls to Morrison and Associates only amplified the damage to her reputation. Her explanations about elevator anxiety and personal space concerns rang hollow in the face of clear video evidence showing her comfort level before Williams appeared, and her obvious relief after avoiding the shared elevator space. Each attempt to justify her behavior generated additional negative attention and further documented her inability to acknowledge the discriminatory nature of her actions. The legal machinery that ground Rebecca Patterson's life into financial ruin began moving with corporate efficiency within weeks of the elevator incident going viral. Williams retained one of Chicago's most respected civil rights attorneys, who recognized the case's potential to establish important precedents about personal liability for workplace discrimination. The lawsuit filing sought $500,000 in damages from Patterson personally, and an additional $750,000 from Morrison and Associates for institutional liability, amounts that reflected both the severity of the discrimination and its viral amplification across social media platforms. Patterson's legal defense costs began mounting immediately as she discovered that her homeowner's insurance policy specifically excluded coverage for intentional acts of discrimination. The $75,000 retainer demanded by her attorney represented more than her annual take-home pay, forcing her to liquidate retirement savings and borrow against her home's equity to fund a defense strategy that grew more expensive with each passing week. Her credit rating plummeted as the financial pressure of defending against federal civil rights violations overwhelmed her middle-class income and savings. The evidence against Patterson proved overwhelming as Williams' legal team methodically documented her pattern of discriminatory behavior. Security footage provided irrefutable proof of her elevator avoidance, while former colleagues came forward with sworn affidavits describing years of microaggressions and biased comments. Her social media history revealed a digital paper trail of posts questioning diversity initiatives and sharing content that promoted colorblind racism, creating a comprehensive picture of deeply held prejudices that extended far beyond the single elevator encounter. Morrison and Associates moved quickly to limit their institutional liability through a carefully negotiated settlement that addressed both Williams' damages and their commitment to enhance diversity initiatives. The $400,000 financial settlement represented only part of their response, as company leadership recognized that meaningful change required structural reforms rather than simply monetary compensation. They created a chief diversity officer position specifically for Williams, offering him a $180,000 annual salary, along with equity participation and executive-level authority to implement comprehensive bias prevention programs. Patterson's employment termination occurred within a week of the incident going viral, as her current employer cited conduct inconsistent with company values in their official termination letter. The loss of her $85,000 annual salary, combined with forfeiture of unvested retirement contributions worth $23,000, created an immediate financial crisis that made continuing her legal defense nearly impossible. Her attempts to secure new employment in Chicago's marketing industry met with consistent rejection as potential employers recognized her name from the viral elevator footage. The personal judgment against Patterson ultimately reached $150,000 after partial settlement negotiations that reflected her limited ability to pay damages despite the severity of her discriminatory behavior. Her suburban home entered foreclosure proceedings as mounting legal costs and lost income made mortgage payments impossible, while credit card balances accumulated from desperate attempts to maintain basic living expenses. The Chapter 7 bankruptcy filing that followed provided relief from unsecured debts but could not discharge the federal civil rights judgment that would follow her for years to come. Williams' professional advancement in the aftermath of the incident exceeded even his own expectations as opportunities multiplied across corporate America. His thoughtful responses to media inquiries and measured approach to addressing workplace discrimination impressed executives seeking authentic diversity leadership rather than symbolic appointments. Speaking engagements at corporate conferences commanded premium fees, while his consulting practice expanded to serve Fortune 500 companies, implementing bias prevention programs based on lessons learned from the elevator incident. The broader economic impact of Patterson's discriminatory behavior rippled through multiple industries as corporations rushed to update policies and training programs. Insurance companies began requiring enhanced discrimination coverage as viral incidents created unprecedented liability exposure, while legal precedents established in Williams' case influenced settlement negotiations in subsequent workplace bias lawsuits. The total economic consequences exceeded $2.3 million across all affected parties, from legal fees and settlements to policy changes and reputation management costs. Corporate training budgets nationwide reflected the incident's impact as companies invested heavily in bias prevention education designed to prevent similar viral disasters. The marketing industry specifically embraced Williams' case as a teaching tool for cultural competency training, recognizing that demographic shifts in consumer markets made inclusive practices essential for business success rather than mere social responsibility. Professional associations developed certification programs incorporating lessons from the elevator encounter, ensuring that Patterson's career destruction would serve as a cautionary tale for future generations of marketing professionals. The legal precedent established by Williams's successful lawsuit extended personal liability for discriminatory behavior beyond traditional employment relationships, creating new accountability for individual actions that damaged both victims and institutional reputations. Corporate legal departments began advising employees that viral discrimination incidents could result in personal financial consequences, regardless of company insurance or indemnification policies, fundamentally changing the risk calculation for biased behavior in professional settings. Patterson's geographic relocation became necessary, as local notoriety made employment impossible within Chicago's interconnected business community, while her forced career change to lower-paying service industry positions reflected the permanent nature of reputation damage in the digital age.